I saw a slight lag there, but welcome to Bitcoin Live with me, Nick, the host, and some co-host, my good friend from the organized media, Steve, Peace Love Music, and of course, DeFi Fry, or Fry as we like to call him. And today we have a very special guest in our show, which is Ryan Cooper, the Bitcoin Rancher. Welcome to Bitcoin Live, Ryan.
Thanks, man. I feel very welcomed. Happy to be here.
Yeah, we're very happy and very fortunate to have you on because today we're going to talk about the circular economy, which is something that we care about very much, and of course about Bitcoin adoption and spreading decentralization around the world, and especially with local economies. And let's just dive right in. You're selling beef for sets, I guess also milk for sets. How did you actually merge those two things, the ranching and Bitcoin, and how's it going?
Yeah. Well, thanks again for having me. I was actually talking about some of the origins of this yesterday. It was Bitcoin's 17th birthday. Happy birthday to all the Bitcoiners out there. We had kind of a local powwow at with our local group, and we were talking about our early milk days. So during COVID, that's when a lot of this really got activated. I was living in a rural community in the Midwest of the U.S., pretty unconnected with my local food supply. I had a kid and a kid on the way. When COVID really started to pick up, me and my wife realized it was important for us to find food. So we started with milk, and I found a raw milk dairy about an hour away. And we started running twice a week milk routes from there back to our town, and distributed milk to our local network and some families and friends. And it really became a Bitcoiner initiative real fast because it was a long round trip. And so everybody started pitching in, and we established our first little circular economy. We called it the Milkman Co-op. And we started working with more farmers, distributing more food, figuring out how to structure ourselves so we could do it all within legal framework and keep health departments off of our back. We're all very libertarian leaning. And so it's more of a game of, how do we do what we need to for our families and make all the dots connect in the back end. So that was where it started. And now, we distribute a lot of different food for a lot of small and medium-sized farms here in Southeast Missouri.
How difficult was it to get communities and local farmers get involved with your initiative? I mean, there's this technical barrier, of course. Some people might be a little bit hesitant or afraid of something like Bitcoin. It might be too technical, or did you run into any of these issues, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, absolutely. It was a while, some years probably before we got a farmer to actually accept Bitcoin. And we've reached different levels of success. I actually had a farm reach out to me last week and asked me to organize some hay from a different farm. And while I was kind of going back and forth, they asked how they wanted to pay, and they asked me, "Hey, can we use our Strike account, pay in Sats?" And I realized we'd gotten them to start accepting Sats years ago, and they've got this stack. They want to pay with hay. So with some farmers, it just kind of happens out of convenience. Eventually we just kind of bamboozle them into accepting a little Bitcoin. We structure their wallet, and then with others, I mean, it's a much longer uphill walk, and we end up just kind of cleaning up whatever money currency issues one member of the network might have with another. So we'll accept the Sats ourselves and pay out cash or do whatever we really need to do, all while kind of building our network and kind of claiming them in the umbrella. Really, the idea here is that it's going to be very hard to maybe get our farmers to accept our money, but we really need our farmers' food. And a lot of these farmers, at least where we live, are getting older. They're a lot of boomers, and they don't really have succession plans. And so, I have one dairy farmer I think is probably close to their last year, and I really don't know what's going to happen after he's done. He's 76 years old. He's milked his cows twice a day, every day since he got married, at 20. So sorry to get off a bit of a rabbit trail, but helping the farms is really the focus here. I've got 4 kids now, and that's where the conversation was really originating yesterday, kind of around the table at the coffee shop. Was I'm not really sure where I would get milk for my own family, looking 5, 10, 15 years down the road. I don't know any producers that would still be rocking and rolling unless we step up and give them a different path ahead. So I think the Bitcoiners are going to do a lot of good. It might not all be orange pilling, it might just be being good community members for a while.
Yeah, I had a question. Okay. Yeah, if that's okay. No, I was just curious because something that I would imagine is, so you mentioned that you guys are very liberty minded, you and your group of people with Bitcoin Ranch, very much libertarian in philosophy. My question kind of comes from the idea that I would imagine people who are ranchers living off the land, especially post-COVID, seeing how much government intervention often doesn't work and sometimes makes things worse. And here you are, a group of people trying to help your local community, and you're having to get permits. You're having to jump through hoops from regulators to just do some good in your community. I would think getting people to embrace this kind of concept would start from the philosophy, right? The idea that this is decentralized money, that this is actually embraced by people like us who want to be free from government intervention as much as possible, starting with our money and our ability to actually work with others directly, rather than through centralized intermediaries that cut us off at every turn. I'm just curious how much the philosophy is something you build upon rather than the tech, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, for sure. I do know what you mean. It's a good question. Are you guys familiar with the Beef Initiative?
Oh, you might have to run us through it a little bit.
Yeah. So when we started to get more organized, we've been running this milk route for a while. We were starting to distribute, clean beef and different things. And I heard on a Joe Rogan, podcast, the Podfather, Adam Curry, referenced this guy named Texas Slim, his buddy down in Texas, who was working with the Texas Beef Initiative to localize food supply chains. And so I kind of scrambled around, and a couple of us got in contact with Texas Slim, the Beef Initiative, and found out there was a group of Bitcoiners in Texas working in a small town to build a local supply chain. And I got in touch with them. We went down to Texas, we shook their hands. We talked them into coming up here to Missouri and helping us do the same. So we ended up starting the St. Francois County Beef Initiative those years ago. And that's when we really kind of formalized. We started acting very politically locally. We ran a couple political campaigns. They not any ones that won. We ran libertarians, but ones that were very loud. And that was very much our message was we need to take custody and local control of our communications and our food and our water. We had some questions we used to ask back in the day, like, hey, if we have to take care of ourselves, we're very rural here. There's 18,000 people in my town here. And one of the guys would ask, where would the barbed wire go? Would it be like around our house or around our block or our whole county? Like we are very freedom-minded people here. Missouri, you probably don't know a whole lot about the state of Missouri. We're a flyover state, but we have very good laws when it comes to most things like fresh milk and free trade and farmers markets and cottage industry laws. And so people are typically pro-freedom minded. They understand we're controlled, but on the flip side, it's quite hopeless with a lot of these farmers. And I really hate to say it because I love a lot of them, but they're going to lose everything. It's they're very captured, man. Even after we all saw what happened through COVID, and a lot of different people have a lot of different perspectives of what happened during COVID. But I was working at a car dealership at the time, right when COVID kicked off, and I just realized very quickly I was just a mouthpiece of the machinery. You know, the emails were coming down from the GM of General Motors, Mary Barrow, and we would just kind of like parrot those talking points all the way down. And that's when I realized, like, oh my God, I need to get out, and like panicked, and threw away a really great job, just jumped off a cliff and said, well, I'm going to become a farmer, I guess. I don't know what else to do here. I need milk and beef. But to come back to your point there, Fry, we're probably going to have to do a lot of this ourselves. You know, a lot of these farmers, they need help, and that opens a lot of doors. You know, I've seen a lot of Bitcoiners show up and scrub cow shit off of milk parlor walls and clean greenhouses. Thousands and thousands of hours of urban Bitcoiners traveling to our little rural community here to invest in the local agriculture. And these farmers don't really know how to interpret that. These Bitcoiners are here. I guess I'll let them talk about their magic internet money. But when it really comes to like them dropping the shackles, they are so far backed in a corner. To get them to not follow the prescription handed to them by a chemical company that tells them what to plant, tells them what inputs to put on their seed, nobody's going to take that risk. You know, everybody's so over leveraged. Yeah, it's the Bitcoin might be an orange hope pill, but it's going to come with a lot of hard work.
Yeah, but in that, I mean, it really ties into my next question actually, because I mean, I guess when you set up a circular economy like the way you're doing it, at first you have to have like a small percentage of Bitcoin. Like you have to first, you know, you have to spread the knowledge of wallets and how you operate a wallet, but you don't want to have all your income in Bitcoin or in Litecoin or whatever, right? Yeah. Because it's too volatile, right? So you would have like 10% or something of your income in Bitcoin. But over time, of course, Bitcoin is like the ultimate savings technology. So the more they save in Bitcoin, the more they get rid of that leverage that you just mentioned, because they will cut loose from the old system over time, of course, and you know, start building this new local functional economy, which is, I guess, also what you're aiming at, right? So I guess the question is, how bad is it with farmers? And do you think that is a solution to these farmers in the longer term, like, you know, a way to cut loose from the system, to insulate themselves, and also to start farming the old-fashioned way, right? That you actually create real products with, you know, like high-value products, like healthy products, I guess you would say.
Yeah. Well, let me think about that a little bit. You know, I would call myself a Bitcoin maximalist, and that would go for pretty much everybody that works together locally in our network. The problem is, it seems to me, it's really hard to, I call it, leave Babylon and take any of that with you. It almost, personally, in my life, it's like I kind of had to sacrifice everything to become a Bitcoiner. I didn't have a whole, you know, I didn't have like a bunch of money socked away that I was able to like, you know, ape into Bitcoin when I got it, when I got orange pilled. I just realized, like, okay, I can work really hard like I was going to work really hard before, and it not all be stolen from me. And I can do it in an honest way. Mm-hmm. And I can be like truly productive and build slowly and methodically. And over the course of 10, 20, 30 years, I can build something for my family. And that's how I use Bitcoin as a savings technology. As far as like a typical farm around me, is, they're land wealthy. They're raising cattle that are heavily manipulated. I mean, it's really awful. And now we're to a point where we have, a couple of years ago, we were the Beef Initiative globally. We were traveling around the world saying like, hey guys, we got the lowest cattle stock we've had since the 80s. And then we were saying the 70s and now the 60s. And I've seen some numbers now. We might have the lowest cattle stock globally we've had since the 50s, and so you got local farmers around me who are trying to raise cattle. They have this asset land, which you can, debate how beneficial that is to a farm since they're all dying, but they're slowly having to leverage that asset, their land, to pay for all of the pretend productivity stuff that happens on the land. That's what Bitcoin really inverts. It really flips, like the ability to, have a small. I and another Bitcoiner started a fencing company 2 years ago, Liberty Fencing, and so we've got this 2-year-old, successful Bitcoin standard company that's paying its employees in Bitcoin. We accept Bitcoin. We save in Bitcoin. There's not like a huge advantage day to day, but after a year or two, if you started a small plumbing company or small farm or whatever, and we're saving in Bitcoin, that's going to give you a 30% advantage on your local competitor. So I think these are like the real value sells to local farms, is like, hey, this is not going to be easy. You're going to lose everything. You know that, though. I mean, every farm around you has been auctioned off and turned into a development. You're not farming like your great grandparents are. Your barns are falling down packed full of hay because you can't afford to diversify your products. So you either farm corn or you farm hay, and you pack all that in your barn. And it's just this very dystopic, like, rat race they're on. They're never going to get out of this. There is no hope unless they opt out of the global feed the world ideology. And they said, hey, I'm going to build a small business in my community that does produce a high quality product, whatever that may be, if it's soap out of tallow or whatever. And I'm going to slowly start chipping away at this like people used to. And I'm going to slowly build a business that has real roots, but it's not the quick fix. And the whole time, the alternative that's flashing is, go to the local bank and, double down on this thing and put in more nitrogen this year, apply more inputs. So I'm sorry, man. I think your question is like, what's the, where is the hope for farmers? And it's like, stop doing stupid stuff, stop doing the thing that's killing us. And I know it's scary because then it becomes your responsibility. I'm a homeschooler as well. It's the same thing. Like, hey, I can take on the full responsibility of educating my kids, and I can, deal with the fear of my kids growing up and being stupid. And, and I can do this hard thing, or I could send my kid, they send the bus to my driveway. My kids on the bus. I could send them to the state institution. They can pretend to try to keep them safe there. They can run them through metal detectors and do their whole thing, and then they can come out and not read. But then it's not on me. Then it's their fault. And I just see so many people doing that, whether it's with education, whether it's with how they run their business or how they run their farm or how they think about money. I mean, these things they're like heavy responsibilities for us to assume as I think you guys are anarchists, like there's nobody
especially.
There's nobody to save us, maybe the aliens. I don't know, but it doesn't seem so right now. It seems like, hey, grab a pitchfork, dude. We're gonna be out a while.
I love everything you said about that too, because it's true. Like, we have to save ourselves. We can have faith in something greater, but we have to take that individual first step. And you really talk about how comprehensive it is, because it's not just the matter of money, which obviously is central to all of it, right? The currency that we're using, of course, but it's also the education. It's also the philosophy that other farmers live by. I mean, this is probably like a dirty thing to bring up on here, and we don't have to talk about it too much, but Monsanto, and some of these big corporations, and, these people leverage government to keep their hold on small farmers, because basically if they have them using these processes that are going to kill their crops or keep them dependent on factory farmers or people providing these chemicals or things that they say they need, they're never going to be free. So, like, if they're still wrestling with those kinds of issues, wrestling with the issues of where they're even going to educate their kids to try to learn the proper way to do things, how are they going to ever get around to understanding, as you said, this magical internet money? It's just crazy. I had to make the same decision for my own daughter to stop sending her to any kind of like public school, because I'm worried about like her having to suddenly bring a bulletproof backpack to school, that this is a thing now. How insane. And then she comes home and she's indoctrinated with all this crap. She's not learning anything. It's just, I had to stop it too. So I respect everything you said.
Yeah, dude. Fry, good to hear. Congratulations. Good for you.
I also have I'm the father of 7. I have 5 that have already graduated. I'm old. I'm probably I'm
well
not sure
done,
exactly
brother. Well done.
But I've gotten 5 adult children out of my house, self-sufficient on their own, to varying degrees of comfort and whatnot. We still have 2 left in the house. My youngest just turned 14, so I'm mostly through it. And I love the idea of homeschooling. I actually really wanted to homeschool my youngest. My oldest 4, I was a young dad, so it wasn't even something I really could entertain. I wasn't home. We both had to work just to make ends meet. It was tough back then.
For sure.
But I do think that having gotten kids through, there are pros and cons to each, right? And I don't think that the negative or the potential downside to homeschooling is just that you just have to make sure that you're giving them ample social opportunities outside of that. It's not a concern about whether they're going to end up stupid, because I don't think that the school system is actually creating deep thinkers anyway. I think
you can also be stupid smart, right? I mean, there's a lot of
right.
Educated idiots. I that's what I hear old farmers call them.
Yeah.
Right. It takes a lot of effort beyond the public school system to make functional adults.
Well, man, I really appreciate that, Steve. So 2 things. One, like, we can do whatever we feel led to do. And at the end of the day, I do believe in God, and I believe that we do need a higher power to step in. I've done all sorts of things to protect my family, and you guys know, right out here on my farm, I almost had like a tragedy with my 2-year-old son. The reason this podcast got delayed 3 months, because the day we were going to do it originally, my kid got ran over by an F350 out on our farm, ran over front and back tires. My wife and daughter watched it happen. It was real traumatic and horrible. We landed the helicopter out here to get him to the hospital, and he had fractures from the top of his head down through his femur. Femur was broken. His gut was ripped open. No serious injuries. Not a thing. He's running. He's on the trampoline right now.
Wow.
And I praise.
That's amazing, man. Holy, but sorry you had to go. That's still horrible, man.
So, I mean, what do? We do what we can. We do what we're led to. Homeschool. The decision to homeschool now versus 10 years ago is very different. My mom was a radical even when I was growing up. So I'm the oldest of 12 kids. And my mom and dad grew up in Detroit. Pretty, they clawed through early life for a while. Did a good job. But my mom, like I said, real conspiratorial. None of us have ever been on a vital organs registry list, or she never vaccinated any of her kids. She home birthed us all. She homeschooled all of her kids, and you do what you can do, and then life catches them by the throat. And there's nuance in all these things. And when you were talking, Steve, I was just thinking, we're talking shit on Monsanto right now. So Monsanto has a big presence around here, we'll call it. And my kids actually swim in Monsanto Lake. That's the name of our local swimming hole. And
that doesn't sound healthy.
Sounds scary.
Yeah, I wish they named the lake something else. And there's times of the year that they're not actually supposed to swim out there for some reason. But swimming's a little, we're not in Finland here.
It could just be bacteria count because it doesn't wash out properly. But
the thing is in local farming, well, let's get into the nuance of Monsanto. It's like I have the community of Bitcoiners looking at these farmers, and they're like, there's no nuance. They don't understand money. They're not thinking, they're all a bunch of communists who have sold out their family's lineage to the USDA a generation ago. And then the farmers on the flip side, they're looking at, the more based world that's showing up and asking for things like grass finished beef, or, I want unvaccinated beef, things like that. And the farmers don't really know how to communicate with normies, because normies are also kind of stupid. It's like, what's unvaccinated beef? Like I bet you 90% of the people who buy vaccinated beef or unvaccinated beef are getting vaccinated beef, because when that calf is born, I mean, unless it's being watched, it's getting a couple vaccines. I just don't believe it. That farmer is jabbing it a couple times, with a black leg shot or something else. And then, you have people coming to a dairy farm and asking for, like, I don't want milk that's fed any grain. It's like, okay, well, all of these dairy cows would die if we milked them and didn't give them grain. We're just, there are some heritage breeds that you can not give grain. There's just a lot going on. There's not one kind of beef. There's thousands of kinds of beef. There's not one kind of education. There's thousands of kinds of education. And if you're assuming that the machine at Babylon, the empire, whatever, is going to feed your family and care about their nutrition, or educate you or your family and care about, them knowing what money is, it's not going to happen, So I think there's nuance in all these things, and that's where it really becomes a full-time job to be a peacemaker. And is that feedback me?
I think there's not much feedback. There's a slight, very soft, almost unhearable.
Can you guys still hear me? I had a mic issue too. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you're good. So if we could give you a magic wand, or make you like a president for for a term, for a year, what would you do to make the lives of farmers better, and perhaps even the entire country? What would you change when it comes to agriculture and the way we operate?
I certainly want to release the Epstein list. Maybe kidnap the president of Venezuela. I don't know. President would be a really big ask. If I had real influence in Southeast Missouri, then I think all government intervention is wrong. Not only does it never achieve the outcome, it always attempts to achieve its outcome with coercion and stolen funds. So it becomes difficult, because anything that I think we should do from a big level would be pretty passive. Shut up, stop
Okay.
Stop harassing our local Mennonite community for selling from their farm store. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
Can I rephrase it? Like, what needs to stop immediately? Like, if you could stop one thing.
I think that's the classic libertarian question, though. It's like we want to take over the world so we can give it back to the people and let them make their own individual decisions. It's like, stop controlling all these things and let the free market work.
Less regulation, less control, less barriers to market is really what his answer boils down to a large degree.
Man, if I could, I could snap my fingers and everybody was on a hard money standard, and then all of my neighbors would do fantastic. They would do fantastic. Very productive people here. Very hard workers. Know how to do stuff. Not a lot of white collars around here. We would build a citadel that would last 100 years, 1,000 years, if people were able to work with their hands, be productive, and not be fucked with. And I think the most fucking with is happening through the money. And it's blind,
And
Indeed.
Do you?
I agree. Sound money would go a long way to solving a lot of our problems, and we're on that path with Bitcoin. I mean, that's really the whole point, right?
Yep.
Is to give us a sound money option and add an uncontrollable rail there, something we can use to promote a little bit more reliability and open transparency in the system.
Yeah, it starts with the money for sure, and it's also like when the thing that my uncle always says about democracy is like it's three wolves and a sheep deciding what's for dinner, but it's kind of like this idea that if we had a system that was based on inalienable rights, right? You wouldn't be able to vote in a democracy or anything about being able to strip those rights away. And that particularly matters when you consider that you have these big corporations so powerful that you have a lake named after them. What I think you said, Monsanto Lake or something out there. They have this much power that, we say things like government is here to break up monopolies. Government is here to make things fair for the common man. Well, what better example than when these people come in and their monopolies are preserved by government. These bureaucratic processes are put in place that make you have to play these games that appeal to these big corporations that already have control, that already have a stranglehold on the market. And they're actually making the food worse and the crops worse and things harder for the farmers. They're not benefiting the common man at all, if you even want to call it that. It's literally the opposite. And I think that's integral to the problem. And it starts with the money too, because these people have control of the money. They don't want the money to change, because if the money changes, then the power changes, right? And maybe they'll let things switch to Bitcoin when they own more of it, but we'll see how that goes, I guess.
So how does faith fit into all this, right? You're a man of faith, I think, and making that big of a switch, starting farming. I imagine that faith plays a big role into that. Like, can you sort of explain to us how did it, form your life, and how did it sort of help you achieve what you have achieved so far?
Yeah. I was raised very Christian, in an American way, and I broke away from that in my late teens. Ran real hard and crazy, pursued whatever I wanted, and didn't consider much else, and really ruined my life. Broke a lot of relationships, almost permanently broke my relationship with my wife. And she and I, about 5 years ago, sat down around the same time that, COVID was kicking off, and we were making a lot of life decisions. And I realized, I told her, I was like, man, I don't have any friends. I work 70 hours a week, very obsessed with my job, and we don't have like my wife's a real introvert. She's from Finland. That's how we have some mutual friends in Finland, I believe.
Vesa.
And yeah, man, sweet brother, Vesa. Yeah, and so I really started to pursue my faith or turn back to God around that time. And it was really because I realized the whole world was a lie. And I was watching the White House press secretary lie for a senile old man that was pretending to be president. And I remember watching it. I was at work and just realized, like, oh my gosh, like I resonated with that woman up there, like taking these hard questions and just spinning. I was a sales and finance manager at a car dealership, so like I know how to like keep a conversation flowing, or whatever you're supposed to do in a sale. And I just like slowly realized, like, man, I have a giant whiteboard in the back of the office I use to train people how to manipulate grandma. Like, I'm just trying to like maximize profit. And I just like day to day was being awakened to my incentives are drawing me here every day. Every day I'm incentivized to like practice lying, not lie. You don't want to lie, but you want to get like kind of close,
Careful omission.
Yeah. Spin doctor. So I just became I kind of became obsessed with this idea of truth, and that there is a definitive truth to reality. Everything's not relative. And I just tried to start telling the truth every day in like a very Jordan Peterson, kind of amateur get up and make your bed type of way. Try to tell the truth. Definitely don't lie. And that didn't go, like, my job didn't do well doing that. And I was like really well liked at work with my boss. And he would kind of come through the dealership, once a day for a couple hours. And we kept having these meetings where it was like, hey, I need you to focus here. I need you to focus on the job. And I'm like, hey, I know, but Bitcoin's going to eat the world and raw milk's really important. And I've got, a quarter beef in the kitchen, the refrigerator in the kitchen waiting for a guy to pick up later. And I told him, you'll get 50% of me. Like, that's all I can bring to this job anymore. Start looking for my replacement. And it just ate at me more and more and more to where I finally turned in my 2 weeks. My boss yelled at me, said, give me a resignation letter by the end of the day. And I was done. I was like free. And I didn't have a car, like my poor wife, dude, seriously. We were about to go to Europe to see her family. I was like, hey, we got enough money for the next couple months. And I'm going to be a farmer. So it's going to be okay. The world's going to collapse, Clara. We'll have food.
How did she respond?
Very hard. It's been very hard. It's been very broke. It's been a real struggle the past years. 2 years ago, the past year, I would say it's gotten a lot better, and I've gotten kind of focused in how to develop cash flow. But in the meantime, I've really been stretched, and this the dichotomy of being a faithful father and man who knows what he's supposed to do today, goes and does it, while also being aware that, like, you could be at work or you could be in town feeding the homeless people with some of your bros, and that call could come and they could say, your kid's been ran over, get to the farm as quickly as possible. And it's just like, man, I don't know. I'm not going to stay in bed and just expect God to take care of me. But also, God seems to be taking care of me, and I'm like eternally grateful. I'll keep plowing the field,
That's pretty phenomenal. Like, honestly, like, if I can just add to that a bit, Ryan, I have kind of a similar story to yours. I'll keep it brief, but like, I was raised Catholic, fell out of the faith, and most of my life still I was an atheist. And I started to change when I got involved in decentralized finance in 2020 during COVID and all that stuff that was going on, and just this rise in interest in Bitcoin, Ethereum. I was more the Ethereum guy because back then I was still liberal with a very liberal wife, like a guy who campaigned for Bernie Sanders. Completely like head turning, like how big I shifted. But I started to realize I wasn't happy because, I was making all this money. It was coming just in waves, and we were spending so much and going out, but like just not feeling fulfilled. And then when things started to dry up and things changed, also negatively impacted by the Biden administration, watching what they did with that Gary Gensler and the SEC and how they literally would cozy up to people like Sam Bankman-Fried for what legislation that would positively impact crypto. Meanwhile, this guy stole billions from people. It was just maddening, right? And I had this moment where nothing I was doing was working. I was struggling with my wife. Nothing was going right. And I had been looking at libertarianism, being involved in a token project, but it started to conflict with I thought I was a liberal. I thought I was a Democrat. I thought I was an atheist. But I'm suddenly dealing with all these things. And I had this realization that all this was coming together. I was learning economics. I was discovering things like the invisible hand, which I was like, that sounds like God in action. What is that, right? A free market principle, that's God in motion through people. The way it was described in this book, transformed me. And I remember I looked at my wife, I felt like I hadn't seen her before. And I fell in love with her. And I told her I love you. And I actually meant it for the first time. It's hard for me to remember this because that didn't go so well. But I also became libertarian. I started focusing more on the things that I wanted to do in the space and just going crazy for it. No longer am I going to take projects just because they pay me well, but force me to lie or force me to compromise on my values. I'm going to believe in something greater. Do I have a firm belief, state, or, religion or something? Not per se, but I believe in a higher power now. I believe there's purpose to my life and others. And I think that's great that you and your family were able to make it through that big of a transition because, at least me and my wife are not, unfortunately, but I still have my daughter. We had to literally pick up and go to a new country, but it's amazing how central to all these realizations were becoming a libertarian, becoming a believer in free market principles, epitomized by currency like Bitcoin and Ethereum, and finally believing in myself and also believing in something higher. And I just think your story is just really inspiring because I went through the same thing.
Thanks, dude.
And some people say, of course, that because Bitcoin is basically a ledger of truth, a truth ledger, or truth machine, as some people put it, creating full transparency, that there's some connections to the divine. Some people even sort of, make an argument that Bitcoin might have come from higher up. But
spiritual for sure. It's definitely a spiritual movement. Yeah.
All good things come from.
There's definitely a spiritual element to it. And how difficult was it for you to basically start farming then?
Whoa, shockingly easy. You can farm so easily if you don't want to make money.
You start with just feeding yourself, right? I mean, start with feeding yourself, then worry about making money through feeding other people.
Yeah, but it is. So quick rabbit trail. When I drive through a big metropolitan city, and I see all of these giant skyscrapers filled with banks, and other scummery law practices and things. My best friend and Bitcoiner locally is a lawyer, so I get to make that joke a lot. I don't think those are the most productive thing for people to do. I think the most productive thing is to grab some nails and a hammer and go build something. And I think we kind of see glimmers of that in history, where a group like the Masons can become incredibly powerful, and the things that they build can stand for a long, long time. And I think that's kind of the natural way of things. you know, when people's incentives aren't completely misaligned and they're not having most of their productivity sapped away, which just makes life suck.
Mhm.
So back to earlier when we were talking about what it would take for a lot of farms, I just have this like image of a big battleship that needs to turn 180 and go in the other direction. And it's like, it's not actually hopeless. You know, we can do it. And once we get them turned around and go in the other direction, things are going to be fantastic. Like we've got good ships and great propeller technology.
Is it fair to say? Is it fair to say that it's not so much? I'm not saying that the farmers can't do things differently to a better outcome, but a lot of it is things that are really beyond their control, like unsound money and rampant waste and fraud and abuse at the highest levels that, you know, it's causing this rampant inflation, overtaxation, overregulation. And then that's tailored to the companies like Monsanto that are, you know, screwing with the genetics of the plant material and the food process. Like everything's becoming very, very tampered with. So it's a very, I'm not trying to sound, I'm an eternal optimist. And I have a bad story as far as where my family came from. You know, I live in New England. I live in Rhode Island, grew up here. And my father's family had, you know, when I was a little kid in the late 70s and early 80s, they had an operating milk bottling plant and couple houses in the neighborhood around the plant. And I used to hear stories about how, oh yeah, we used to own the land where that Citizens Bank is. We used to own the land where that CVS pharmacy is. We used to own the land on the corner where the big Cumberland Farms gas station is. And over time, they would just sell land. They were actually a small dairy farm. And as things got more and more developed, it became an urbanized. They would sell off the land as they needed money. And it was a bad, you know, obviously in hindsight, in real life, I'm a realtor. Part of the reason why I was motivated to get into real estate is because I was like, why, how do we not still own all of this land we're talking about? I do think that and there were things that they should have done better, differently. They could have done things to finance operations differently than piecemealing off the land. It was not an intelligent way to develop. But that's in hindsight. I had the hindsight of that experience. And so part of that also is the dynamic of how things developed over time. I bring up Cumberland Farms. People probably know what Cumberland Farms is. They're a huge international brand. They started in Rhode Island. They were a direct competitor of my father's family. And they benefited from price controls. There was actually price controls on milk. You couldn't charge below a certain amount in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 50s and 60s, I think it was before I was born. So a long time ago. And that's why Cumberland Farms actually started opening up milk stores, because that was a way to get around the price control rule, because it was only for delivered milk. If you sold it in a store, you could sell it for less and people would go pick it up and it was cheaper. So of course you're going to go. And then that's how they developed their model, and good for them. You know, nothing wrong with that, but that put a lot of the price control regulation actually hurt the farmers that were developing and actually made things get more consolidated and less distributed. And a distributed ecosystem of smaller businesses is actually more robust to change. When everything's controlled top down and you have these massive players that are the go-to that dictate how markets are going to go no matter what, that's really when we've ceased to have a free market in this country in a number of ways because of that. Yeah. So, and again, I'm kind of going off around here, but I think that we need change at a level beyond where just an individual farmer can facilitate it on their own. There's things that need to happen outside of their control for us to actually be able to maintain and even grow the viability of farming, which is a problem. You know, it's without food, without farmers, there's no food. And I think that we've proven that over time, humans actually do a pretty good job of producing food in abundance beyond what they actually need to consume. So we just need to get back to it goes back to sound money. It really does. It goes back to sound money and a more fair and open political system.
Yeah. Basically, decentralization is within sort of, if you put it like in complexity theory, it's like built-in redundancy, and like with the current system that we have, it's sort of hyper focused on efficiency, and it's like if you're an athlete and you have to perform at the highest levels constantly, with the slightest hiccup, you run into a problem and you're disabled for life, right? If you
Right.
make the wrong move.
Well, how good government is at managing efficiency as well. I mean, look at how we try to do minimum wage laws, but if like you actually know the history of that, you know how that was actually used to hurt immigrants and people who came in trying to look for lower wage jobs. It was actually to get them out of a job, actually, by raising the wage by which they had to hire people. And price controls is a similar example. If we would have had price controls through Kamala Harris, even though I'm not super excited about everything going on now either, we would have basically had this communist dystopian world where essentially the government has to seize the means of production because businesses stop being successful. But the other side of this government interventionist crap that I think you were hinting at, Steve, but you didn't directly mention, besides the fractured loss of real estate property over time, you also can look at the government's role in that through property tax, right? Which has gone up over time. I mean, I'm in Tbilisi, which has one of the lowest property taxes rates you can find anywhere. But my own family has dealt with this issue where my grandfather owned a lot of property. He was actually more liberal, but I think if he had a greater understanding of economics, he probably would have been a libertarian like me. Always had issues with government. If he would have lived in today's time, he would have owned Bitcoin, always trying to hide assets, protect his money, but not so good at doing it so many times. But we had property in our family that different members of the family had to sell off in parcels. Why? Because they were struggling, because they weren't making enough money to pay the property tax. Can you imagine? You're sitting on a property, you own it. You're supposed to own it. You're renting it from the government because you have to pay on all this property you have every year. So they're selling the property off just to pay the tax on it until it's gone. Can you imagine that?
And the overwhelming majority of property taxes goes towards public education.
75% local here.
We all really believe in that here, right? I mean, I think I was almost hinting earlier that I haven't gone full homeschool. I do like online school, but like what I really focus on is I tell my daughter, you're getting your degree, okay? But what you need to realize is there are gaps that need to be filled in, okay? They're going to teach you to operate the machines, so to speak. They're not going to teach you how to build them. They'll tell you all the time in school to talk about thinking outside the box. Every teacher who ever talked about thinking outside the box with me did not think outside the box. They taught you how to think inside the box, literally. Like you didn't do your homework a very specific way, you'd get an F, whether or not you understood how to do it better than anyone else. If you were the kid like me who was like doing his math homework before everyone else because I understood it and didn't have to wait for the teacher to explain it, the teacher comes by and rips up my paperwork in front of everybody because I'm actually smarter than them and I don't need to sit in class and wait. Like that's the kind of enforcement I got. But we have to fill in those gaps. We have to be good neighbors. We have to be communities. And I think that's a big part of what you're doing, Ryan, is even if it feels hopeless and impossible at times, you're still out there trying to educate people about not just decentralized money, which is a big part of it, but it's also these broken systems that don't serve them. It's the fact that if you're competing with people like Monsanto, why are you trusting them to set the playbook for how to compete? Do you really think that they're going to show you how to compete fairly against them, or to slowly lose your business to them through following these broken processes? It's a tall hill to climb, but it's admirable anybody who tries to walk it and save as many people as you can, because that's what Jesus did, right? He tried to save as many people as he could. Isn't that the whole point of this faith? Like, we're supposed to save people if it seems impossible, if they won't listen. Even if we're allegory of the cave, we walk out of the cave and we're used to the darkness and suddenly we're blinded by the light. But now we can see and we can walk in the light because we've seen this. We've seen decentralized money. We've seen God. We've seen something greater. But still, we wander back into the cave and we try to lead people out with us, even if we're stumbling in the dark again, even if they try to kill us because they think we're crazy. You know, it's insane.
Yeah. So, and Steve, I know you got to go soon, but I just wanted to say what happened to your I think you said your family's dairy farm. It's happened to every dairy farm, man. That's happened to every farm I know. Every farm I know, you know, as time goes on, just start selling some acres here, selling some acres here. We financialized all this land, and then we charge property tax on this land. We made sure that we will never own this land, you know. And I think kind of just embracing the suck. We know what's coming. I'm not here to try to own a bunch of land. I'm here to try to lease land, you know. I'll let whoever wants to own it pretend to own it. Just let me grow stuff on it, you know. Thanks.
Steve,
I do gonna drop out, guys. Excellent conversation. We'll have to do it again soon. Y'all have a blessed Sunday, and thank you for letting me join. It was awesome stuff. Ryan, I love what you're working on, man. And I actually want to see if there's anything we can do. We've been working on some stuff. I'm very acquainted with the Stacks ecosystem, and Stacks is Bitcoin L2, and there's a lot of things that have developed in the last year, and more to come that I think might help make things a little bit. There might be some opportunities to make it easier for people to accept and transact in Bitcoin versus just on the L1. That might make things a little bit more attractive to onboarding. So
let's talk about it. I'd love to have a techie talk.
Yeah, well, you know, I do this every day, actually, Monday through Friday. I stream like stupid number of hours every day. Sometimes we're live, sometimes we play some rerun content, but would love to have you. We can do it live or we can do it offline or both. So and Fry, always a pleasure, man. Great stuff. Nick, love you, man. Happy New Year, guys.
Happy New Year.
Sorry, I can't stay for the whole thing, but I do got some stuff I got to attend to. And y'all, please enjoy the rest of the conversation. I'm sure it'll be great.
No problem. Have a good one. So, Ryan, you're also in politics, right? So, at what level sort of do you do politics? And if you could, I mean, how would you sort of balance like the Bitcoin rights, protect the right to hold Bitcoin, while sort of promoting decentralization and freedom, or sort of this libertarian ethos? Like, how do you sort of balance these things, and how do you promote it or speak about it? Or
so we had a county level libertarian party here. It's disbanded since since 4 or 5 years ago, but I was not a part of the party. I was sort of a critic of doing anything. Just think, hey, none of this is going to work. But at some point, I and a couple others got talked into running for local offices, and it was a great experience. Highly recommend it. I think everybody should get out there and run. Not because I think you should win, or even if you win, I don't know that you can really do anything. But in running, if you're a extroverted person and you want to get a lay of the land real quick, and you realize like, man, I don't know the name of my sheriff or whatever. Here in rural America, we have sheriffs. You go run for office, you'll get to know everybody real quick. It's usually, at least in a rural environment. So I ran that first campaign for a county level seat, along with a couple other guys. Got to know who my county commissioners were, my total local government, various municipal governments, met with my sheriff, started to understand what they think their job is and what their job actually is every day. You know, they're managers and they're just trying to do their job. And you know, they're making, I think, a lot of statist mistakes along the way. But there's a lot of things that we say that we don't really believe, like thinking outside the box. You know, another one is like, I don't know if you guys have heard this saying, history is wrote by the victors. Like we say that, and then we all, I guess, still assume history is right or correct, you know. So there's so many things, you know, and like for me, like I'll go to my meeting on Tuesday. It's a county level government meeting, and we start with a prayer, and we swear allegiance to the flag and the Constitution, and then we don't do either of those things or honor either of those things for the next hour and a half. And so how politically active am I? I'm very active at like a hobby level, I would say. I really enjoy it. I don't mind, you know, conflict or difficult conversations in a public setting. I don't mind being the guy to ask, like, hey, why are we putting artificially intelligent surveillance technology everywhere? Like, you know, that's weird for a bunch of Americans to be doing. So what can we do? I think a lot of what we're doing, when I met with Vesa and we, you know, and I spend a lot of time in Finland, the Finland Bitcoiners. I don't know how familiar you are with those guys. They're gangsters. Like,
Gangsters.
yeah, dude, they're like, you know, they are a different breed in Finland. They're radical, and they're also not pretending. And I came back from Finland this year, so and that was like my saying, like, I'm not pretending anymore. I'm not pretending these people are looking out for my best interest. I'm not pretending that it's all going to be okay, you know. Like I'm looking at the world and I see the weather is going to be like this next week. I'm gonna prepare for that weather, you know. And I know that my local governments are going bankrupt. Mm-hmm. I know that they're over leveraged into relationships with big state and federal money. And without that money, they can't do anything. You know, they can't upkeep the bridges. I mean, they can't really do it anyway, but they can't even pretend to upkeep a lot of these municipal infrastructure projects because they originally paid for it with money they didn't have. Mm-hmm. And now they need money to care for it. And so an example of this is like a town over from us. They just turned over like their sidewalk in front of everybody's homes, you know, and that's like city property until last year. And then they turned over that property to all the homeowners. So they sent everybody a letter like, hey, this isn't city property anymore. It's actually yours, you know? And then 2 weeks later, they sent them another letter and said, like, hey, if you don't fix those sidewalks out in front of your house, we're gonna...
Nice gift, huh? I think it's interesting too, because you're talking about the contradictory nature of the job you have to do. So there's a couple elements to that. I mean, you talk about the U.S. debt crisis, right, is really the core to all this, like borrowing money that doesn't exist. And you're seeing this even in local districts where they're having problems on a micro level, but you're also seeing a bigger problem that's inherent to our entire monetary system and policy. But it's also like, and you'll probably respect this being a libertarian. And I noticed this, especially with the anarchists. I have a friend who's an anarcho-communist, and I always like joke about what a contradiction of terms that is. And, you know, being an anarcho-capitalist, you know, him an anarcho-communist, we've always been polar opposites, but we like, you know, we make fun of each other, we're friends, and we have a good time. And that's always been my thing. If I can sit across the table with you and we can have a discussion and be, you know, have our freedom of speech, then I can at least respect you to some degree, even if I don't respect the thing that you believe in. But like something I did see similar to myself and him, and even in some libertarians, right, is a lot of people like me who I consider like myself a purist about no government, completely free market, like principles, etc. You know, when you become a purist about something, like my friend is with his idea of whatever anarcho-communism is, he doesn't vote. And it was ironic to me because when Bernie Sanders ran, you know, and I told you back then I was much more liberal, and, you know, as much as I struggled to really believe in government ever, but like, you know, my upbringing and different things that I went through, you know, being in the rave scene, some of the people I was around, I tended to embrace the left more than the right initially, right? So when Bernie was running, I'm like, here's a guy that at least seems principled. At the time, he seemed principled, and he's representing the left. And I just thought, this must be obvious. This is going to be the guy like my buddy, my anarcho-communist friend's going to vote for. He's literally almost a communist. He's a democratic socialist, but what's the difference, you know? Right. And I talked to him about this. He's like, no, I'm still just supporting a corrupt government, etc. I'm like, but bro, this is like the only opportunity you're going to kind of have to ever support a communist. Like, what are you doing? And like, he's actually seems to like kind of support these values in a good way. Maybe if we had a bunch of little Bernies running the country, it'd be better. You know, this is my idea back then. Silly. But he didn't vote for him. But strangely enough, in this last election, you know, he voted for Kamala Harris. And the most ironic thing about it is he always promotes ACAB, all cops are bastards. So he hates cops, and she's a prosecutor. And if you know her history of actually keeping people in jail for state labor, I told him
over weed.
Yeah. And he's a pot smoker too. I'm like, what the hell, man? Like, what is wrong with you? Like, what it made me realize, you know, is one, we're if you try to enact any kind of change, you know, especially as a libertarian, you're kind of like, I have to participate in this broken system to change it. Like, I have to literally be a part of the very government I hate to somehow fix it to be less the thing that I hate. But still, I'm working through the problem to fix it. But the other thing is, and this isn't just the same with my anarcho-communist friend, it's the same with so many people. They don't understand economics. They don't understand politics. They don't know what they're supporting anymore. They're confused. They're so confused. I mean, you guys could probably respect this because, you know, I know at one point, you know, some people in this room maybe now still supported Trump, and that doesn't matter. We don't get in debate about that. But like, you know, the irony of him being the law and order president, the Blue Lives Matter president, but you know, he's the felon running against the prosecutor. Do you ever feel like what are we in? Like, what is happening here? Like, it's bizarre. There's like, yeah, it doesn't feel real.
Well, he's bringing down inflation, right? He just invaded Venezuela, so you know, there's more oil.
Yeah, I mean, I was a big Malay follower, and the one thing that I feel like has separated me, I guess, from a lot of people politically is I try not to be a tribalist. I try not to believe that anybody is our Jesus, you know, in terms of like, it's a human, it's a fallible human, you know. And even Malay, he's done a lot of things. We had a discussion on this last time we were on, Nick, about a big part of our segment was talking about Malay in Argentina. And like, he's supposed to be this free market guy, and he has curbed inflation a lot, you know, and that's good. But he's also, you know, making like Argentina beef deals with America and taking Trump's money and investing in other countries and getting involved with Palantir and censoring opposition, which again, my thing has always been, I may not like communists, but I let them speak because I let them sound stupid in a free market of ideas where I can beat them by being smarter than them. That's fundamental, in my opinion, to freedom, is allowing people to say the stupid things that they believe, you know. But it's sad when the people we are trusting to fix this, right, they become immersed in the system they're trying to fix, whether it's they're supposed to drain the swamp and suddenly they're a swamp creature, or they're supposed to be libertarians, but suddenly they're doing all this statist bullshit. You know, it's depressing, but it leads back into what you said earlier, Ryan, about, you know, you realize how false people are, like how much lying there is. It's like, my God, like I thought we were on the same side. You know, it's a little shocking.
Yes. Yeah, it's wow, Nicholas, you have anything there?
Yeah, no,
I unloaded a bit, sorry.
I do have a question, right? Because you have mentioned a couple of times that you see, you know, a lot of farmers are in dire straits, and you basically, if I hear you correctly, and the way you look at the future, I mean, you even mentioned it, like, you know, if you see a storm coming, you better prepare for the storm. So what kind of storm do you see on the horizon, and how can people best cope with it, you know, trying to survive it, right? Because I think what you're trying to say is that a lot of these farmers will go out of business pretty soon, and there will be like perhaps food shortages, what kind of issues do you see on the horizon for Americans, and maybe, you know, broader in Finland, Europe? I'm from Europe, so I see a lot of problems on the horizon myself.
Yeah. I'll talk about Southeast Missouri and Finland. That's where my families live, and it's where I put like a lot of my attention.
Mm-hmm.
I think that things are going to be pretty great once you get the ship turned around. And how long it takes to turn the ship around, I think it's just a matter of time. I mean, I think it's like 3 years. I think if a farmer decides like, hey, maybe grandpa was wrong. Hey, I hate to say that, but maybe grandpa got sold a load of shit. And actually, you know, pun unintended, shit would have been better. Maybe grandpa got sold a load of bomb manufacturing product throwaway, you know? And, you know, maybe a lot of the problems that we have stem from me trying to, you know, I tell my guys, because I employ normies as a Bitcoiner who has a Bitcoiner company, and it's in our core values. Like, we're a Bitcoin treasured company. What does that mean? It means that we have a low time preference framework for our decisions. We're building 100-year company. Nobody else is thinking like that. Nobody else can think like that. When I'm communicating Bitcoin to my guys, I say, imagine how hard it would be. We build really high-end custom fencing. Imagine how hard it would be to come out here and build a fence the customer would be happy with if your tape measures all changed every day, you know? Like if each of you had a different tape measure and I was manipulating them at night, you know, and none of them matched, you know, it'd be a total fiasco. It wouldn't be like a sort of failure. It would be a total fiasco. And so right now, everybody's enjoying the total fiasco. You know, I mean, we look around the world and we say that, like, you know, this is what happened in 1971. You know, why do I have to leverage 30 years of my life as a young guy to have a house for my family? Like, this is craziness. You know, why are there people in my community who don't have food? Like, these things, they don't make any sense until you realize the tape measure is getting changed every night. So
we have 60-year mortgages now,
talking
right?
Yeah, baby. I met this guy. He's one of my favorite Bitcoiners. His name's Christos. He's a butcher in Finland. And when I met Christos, it was an answer to prayer in a lot of ways, because I had been praying for some years, like, God, how am I going to feed my family if Walmart stops shipping food into my community? By the way, the name of the town I live in is Farming Town. We don't have food, and our name is Farming Town, you know? And over time I realized, like, God's going to provide, you know? Like, my neighbors, they might not be growing food right now, but they can learn in a couple years of brokenness, in a couple years of not being able to afford the fertilizer. They're going to figure stuff out pretty quick. Like, I'm not you know, I haven't taken the black pill insofar as, for example, like, I do think that there's like good young men and women out there that are going to go and build families. I know there's not a lot of them, you know, but I have 4 younger brothers, and I can tell you, my 18-year-old brother, it swings a hammer every day. He's engaged to be married soon. He's going to do just fine. You know, I mean, he's like a capable, competent young guy who might not have all the book learning, but he's going to be able to build some stuff. And, you know, the same goes for young women out there. There's hope if you just decide, like, hey, I'm not going to consume Facebook AI, you know, sludge 8 hours a day. I mean, it's getting bad. You know, that's the other thing that I would do. I mean, talk about like, oh, you know, as a government, we shouldn't do anything. I'd give people a free communication protocol like Nostr. Man, if I could onboard my community faster to Nostr, I would choose that almost over adoption to Bitcoin, because it is, man, like I don't know if you guys are on Facebook, you get on there, it is trash.
Well,
It is
at the
trash.
moment we have
being
consumes
bogged
people
down.
too. It consumes people too, and what they start to post about. I mean, literally, Mark Zuckerberg ran experiments where they would curate your feed where you'd only see negative posting, negative subject matter, and it actually had an effect where people would start posting negative things so they could have like an actual emotional impact on people. They do things like, if they, at least they did this in the past, if a woman recently takes a selfie of herself down, they show her beauty products because they know she must not be feeling secure about herself.
Dude.
Curating
God
her feed.
help.
This is the,
God help us.
Yeah, can you imagine like doing something like that? And, you know, but I think the hope that exists in what you just said, and you didn't say it exactly this way, but I think you're leaning towards it a little bit, and I think it's true. And it's something I also, the last I saw was from my anarcho-communist friend posting some extinctionalist liberal bullshit. But I think the one thing that it's sad, it's really sad, and I don't mean that I want my friend to not ever know love and to reproduce, but I don't think he ever will. But what I notice about these liberal people who consume this disgusting material is that a lot of them are extinctionalists. They actually believe the better thing is for the human race to die. They think having a child is selfish. And I think if you believe in your capacity to change and save the world, and you think what you're doing is so right, why don't you want to have lots of babies? Why don't you want lots of people who have your genes and your ideas, and they want to make the world a better place? That's been me. I mean, I'm trying to make more money so I can be successful enough to raise a family, but I want a bunch of kids.
What's the point? What's the point?
Yeah.
Like, it's literally like you're talking about somehow having bamboozled a population into not fulfilling like the most base desire, you know, like the initiator to everything I want my sons to grow up into is the drive to find a good partner and raise a family, you know?
Yes.
And we somehow, we poisoned that.
Yeah,
you know, I have close friends that are liberals. I'm thinking of one right now that lives real close to us. We have shared, you know, our kids are friends. And I heard her say that recently, something like, yeah, it'd be better if the world had less people. And I'm like, what people? Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, but
like, look at our people. Let's have more. You know?
But it has been pushed, right, by Hollywood for a long time. And you now and then you see a series come by or a movie come by where they sort of mention like people are the problem. There's too many people. And we also have this very negative self-image, which has been, you know, partly our own fault, right, by consuming the way that we consume. And we're also forced to consume stuff that we actually don't need, right? Things are being sold to us as necessary while they're unnecessary, like your low time preference teaches you to make, you know, to sort out and make a difference between the things that you actually need and the things that you don't need. But Keynesian economics, of course, needs consumption to go and go and go, right, to keep the wheel going. But I think that sort of feeds into this very negative self-image of people, and that people don't realize that the money is broken, and because of the money is broken, you have to consume more and more in order to keep the flywheel going. And that you know, so, but what I also heard you say earlier is like that you actually think as things become worse, the incentive structure changes very rapidly, and people are actually very capable to learn things very quickly if the incentives are there to trigger that learning capability that's inherent in us. So I totally agree with you. So basically you are optimistic about the future. And
I'm optimistic. It's like if somebody is being held underwater drowning, the best thing for them is to like let them not drown anymore. You know, like, let them breathe air. That's step one. And people naturally breathe air. People naturally eat food, and people naturally want to feed their families People naturally want to build and solve problems. Everything we've ever done has been because of that, not because the government's fixed anything, not because like aliens gave us some like, fiber optic technology. Maybe, I don't know, but like
they gave us Bitcoin.
Yeah, I know. I'm throwing you a bone.
No, but I totally agree with that. I think, do you know Deirdre McCloskey? She's like a pretty, well, I'm not sure if she's famous, but she's pretty well known within sort of economic circles, and she has this sort of, not really libertarian, but pretty close to libertarian, and she sort of has this hockey stick where you sort of see humanity with production go like this, and then suddenly it hits like the 16th century with the introduction of freedom, democracy, but also sort of science, and then it starts to sort of and productivity starts to skyrocket, and that's without basically mostly without government intervention, right? That's very little government. Actually, the big size governments that we have now are very unfamiliar when you look into the past. Like it's actually sort of like a phenomenon of the last 100 years that governments have been so like right now I think the US government is even like 50% of the economy, I think, or 40, something like that. In some countries, European countries, is already 50 or over 50% of the economy is the government. I'm not sure what it's in Japan, but it must be pretty insane. So yeah, as that sort of falls apart, you see people going back, basically the pressure is relieved. They're relieved from the pressure of excessive government, and then humanity will shine. They will do the right thing, and of course,
I don't think that we're going to turn into Mad Max.
Okay, no,
when COVID happened, I remember having a dream of some type of lockdown, and I woke up from that dream, and on that side of what happened with COVID, it seemed impossible. It seemed insane that there would be chain link set up somewhere, and there was a checkpoint for me to get from work to home where I had to prove that I wasn't infected by something. And I woke up from that dream. I just thought, like, we're going to have war. Like, you're not going to tell my neighbors, the people who live around here, like we haven't really gotten into 3D printing guns because we don't need to. Like around here, like there's plenty, like these guys are like, Americans, we've said this all our lives. We would never let the government lock us in our houses. And then what would we do? Everybody let the government lock us in our houses, but something that really shocked me was how everybody just kind of continued going about their life. And I had thought, like, anytime I'd read about like a mass hysteria event, in the Soviet Union or Germany, wherever you read about how this goes down, you wonder, like, what is daily life like? Like, at what point does things feel like they changed? And I think that I realized during COVID, they don't. They never feel like they changed. Like it feels normal all the way on to the trains. Like, it's just, and I was impressed with that actually the day after this incident happened with my son recently. Like, this feeling of like, I don't know if I'll still be a father to this son tomorrow. Like, I don't know if he'll still be here. And it's weird how like my everything still feels normal. People still drive to work. People are still trying to go about what actually matters, feeding their families, being productive, feeling like they're building something. And so my whole thesis is just that there's this like Lord of the Flies layer of Truman Show propaganda layered on. That's like, we're like, if we don't have 2 sheriff's deputies on call, for like this huge rural population, they can never protect my family. If I need to call 911, they're never getting here in time. It's just not going to happen. But that's somehow keeping all my neighbors from becoming savages and trying to get a hold of my petrol. And I just don't think that really happens very often without like CIA money involved. I think usually people continue. farmers continue to farm, workers continue to work, builders and entrepreneurs continue to build, and psychopaths continue to try to get a hold of power without working for it.
Well, I think that the biggest problems are probably the big cities, right? Because where dependency is the greatest, and where you got these just-in-time economies, and where, you know, if a supermarket isn't provided for like a couple of days, you got like serious problems. And I think, you know, when you sort of look at anarchy, the picture that most people have with the word anarchy is sort of what you see in movies. You know, the government goes down. You got some kind of attack, or, you know, a natural event or whatever, and people start rioting and plundering the supermarkets. But it's always the big cities, right? That's where it happens, right? And but you can, when people like us, like, you know, from a philosophical standpoint, and you look at anarchy, it's like a voluntary action, right? It's a voluntary action that you do self-rule, like. And in that case, it's a very peaceful and very calm transition. Basically, it's like very, you know, basically what's already happening, it's sort of continued to happen. So I think it's like when complex societies break down suddenly through hyperinflation or some other natural disaster, where people have been learned to sort of, you know, consume Facebook, but not to wield a hammer or to fix anything real. That's where you have a problem, right? I'm not sure if you know Luke Roman, and he sort of makes the point that in America they have to make the shift from lawyers and financial leaders to plumbers, electricians, engineers, right? What they're actually doing in China, or have been doing in China for years. So that's the shift and the mindset, like what you're also talking about with farmers, right? You have to start farming again, right? And that's. I think you're right. I do think that you could have real anarchy, especially if you have like hyperinflation, because
in the cities, all bets are off. Yeah, for sure.
But in the local areas, local communities, I think the chances. I agree. I think the chances are very low, and you have this illusion of security that what you said is exactly right. And you notice, like, you know, when the government shut down, even in America, but also, for example, in Belgium, they didn't have a government for over a year or something.
Things are fine.
Who cares?
I was keeping track of it too, and I'm like, I love every time the government shuts down, because it like proves our point, right? It's like, look, we don't need this whole crap. I mean, whenever I always like, there's a popular meme that explains it pretty well, but it's like, what is anarchy really? Fishing without a license. You know what I mean? It's not people shooting each other in the streets, but it's also like, what do you put your faith in? I mean, if you want to witness the idea of what people think anarchy is, shut down Facebook for a day, make someone lose their phone, not when they need it, I just am bored right now, where is my phone? Anarchy. You know what I mean? Because it's, what do you put faith in? Do you put faith in God, yourself, your family, or do you put faith in the government, a collectivist idea that's supposed to protect you? When the rug gets pulled out from you, though, sometimes it's a good thing. For me, like, it was during COVID, I was very not self-sufficient, you know, and to the one point that I bring up that my wife was right about, and like some of the things that like caused us to separate is, you know, what I love about farmers, they're very self-sufficient. You take care of your food, you take care of your family, you start from the land, and you literally bring that food to the table every step of the way, and to others as well. I was very dependent on my wife for like cooking, for shopping, for a lot of different things, you know, because as progressive as, you know, she always wanted me to be, she didn't mind doing like some of those traditional kind of roles until she just didn't do them anymore one day. And like, I didn't notice how expensive groceries were becoming. And she would tell me once in a while, this bill was $100, this bill was $200. And like, we were making so much crypto money at the time. It's like, whatever, I want my Coca-Colas, you know, I didn't think about it. Right. And then what happened with me is like, when she finally stopped doing these things and stopped participating as a partner in her role for the house, even before she left, and then it like really fell on me, I started like taking on more of these responsibilities. I was like, holy crap, like it's actually really expensive to go to the grocery store. But it was kind of a gift to me, because it wasn't business as usual. It wasn't like something just happened and the world continued on. Yes, I noticed other people are shopping and they don't seem as horrified by me as a gallon of milk, but I'm like, do you see this shit? Like, I'm like pointing at other people in the store. What the hell? Like, it's like it finally just clicked, right?
And it's not even the best milk, right? I mean, the best milk is like when you go to the farmer and you get the real milk. Like that's
this is like crap milk. It's like the worst milk, and I can't afford it, you know? And so, like, you start realizing that you're not buying certain things anymore because how expensive they are. And finally, I was just like, I got to sell my house and get the hell out of here. And people acted like I was crazy. They're like, what are you doing? Like, you're going to leave behind everything you love and go to a country you don't know?
Yeah, and that also reinforces the cycle, right? Because you see this brain drain from Europe, for example, happening faster and faster, right? The smart and successful people, the people who are actually producing stuff, they're thinking, holy shit, like this is going the wrong way. We're going to exit. We're going to exit. And that means that the pressure on those that are left increases, right? Especially, you know, if they increase like the non-productive people who are sort of living off benefits, which sort of crushes their, you know, the productive people, which either, you know, succumb or leave as well. And then, you know, the whole thing falls apart. And, you know, just going back to Weimar Germany and with hyperinflation, you know, the group who did best, besides, you know, those who held gold, or, you know, and then second best is like the ones that, you know, were in stocks, but the people who actually performed the best of all were the farmers. And the farmers, they didn't want to sell to the people, the city people, because they didn't want those worthless pieces of paper because they were, you know, out of date before you got them. So the government had to constantly sort of negotiate with farmers and, you know, sort of trick them into surplus or actually take surplus from them. At certain points when people were really desperate, the city people would sort of rampage into these farms, villages, and do incredible damage there because, you know, they wanted food and, you know, so it didn't happen. So those things are a little bit mad, Maxi.
I certainly don't want to make it sound like all unicorns and rainbows. Like, people are going to starve. I think people are going to lose everything. I think a lot of people will lose everything. You know, when
be happy.
Yeah.
And they will. I never understand that second part. You want anything but be happy. I don't, you know, the happy part. I mean,
well, it's just so. I mean, we're Bitcoiners. We could talk about all of this for 7 hours. I'm sure. It's like when they, you know, like the glass bead currency on the coast of Africa, and like you tell that story to people, and you're like, yeah, everybody used glass beads. They were very difficult. There was a very hard form of currency, and then it wasn't hard anymore. You know, Europeans showed up with ships loads of glass beads, and they started trading them for people's farms and businesses and families and themselves, you know. And we shake our heads and we're like, oh, those stupid people, you know, those stupid people trading their farm for glass beads. And then we'll go and we'll sell, you know, 50 acres off the back of the farm, you know, so we for green paper, or not even ones and zeros in like a computer ran by people who hate us, you know. It's deep ingrained brainwashing. Well, yesterday we were doing this you know, this event at a local coffee shop, and, you know, the coffee shop accepts Bitcoin. They're big friends of ours. We do a lot of Bitcoin events there. We're like sitting over here with 10, 15 Bitcoiners having breakfast, and they're like their regular customers are coming in, and they've got a sign up there that says like, hey, this month we're having to change our prices to eliminate change. So they're just like, they're going to change all their prices to get rid of like odd change, you know? And like, we're a world away from being able to explain that to the lawyers and judges walking in here, you know, from across the street. But this is the problem. We're all drowning in the water. I do think if people are allowed to come up, I think there's some people that will just stay under there and drown. You
Definitely.
know,
remember the thing that happened in Switzerland, you know, with the roof on fire, and people are actually sort of, making, with
Oh,
their phone.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's like even the survival instinct has been sort of overruled by making.
Got to get a selfie of it first, I mean, people got to know that I was
At
here.
least we still have the pictures, but it's oh my god, that's a tragedy.
Yeah.
But,
We call it cattle rustling. Somebody pulls up to your fence, they cut the wire, they load some cows in their trailer, and they take off. And we've had incidents around here. It's not super common here yet. I expect there to be more of those incidents, and you see what happens to rural agricultural communities in all sorts of collapses. People show up and cut steaks off your cows and leave it out there to die. There's all sorts of griminess that's going to happen. I just don't think it will be all griminess.
No,
like I said, if I call 911, I don't think I'm going to get response in time. But interestingly, around here, there's this thing called F3. It's a men's workout group, and we meet every morning at 5 a.m. outdoors, rain or shine, hot or cold, doesn't matter. And somewhere between 60 and 80 guys from my small town, my little community here, show up at 5 a.m. to work out for 30 minutes and drink coffee together every day. It's absolutely insane.
Awesome.
This has only been going for like a year or two. And it's just like I work, my mayor's there. A lot of our local law enforcement's there. And me and my dad comes, my brothers are there. All my friends are there. A lot of Bitcoiners have gotten involved. And I tell my dad, like, I would, like, before I'd call 911, I would just text our group chat. And I'm pretty sure I'd have like 3 Navy SEALs show up. I'm not joking.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So when it all gets scraped away, we have the same land we had before. We have the same people we had before. Arguably, we'll have better tools than we had before. We're going to figure this out.
Definitely.
But we're probably not going to use 911,
Well, you know what my anarcho-communist friend used to say, and it's actually a really good quote for this situation. It's one of the things that we're pretty aligned on. He says, "Strong communities, big police, obsolete." And I love that expression, because when you have, it's so true, and it's so accurate. You can rely on your neighbors better than the police if you have a strong community and strong neighbors who actually look out for you, who do things like that together to keep each other strong, to look out for each other in a community and make sure that people are okay. Having that morning cup of coffee alone is like a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Do you know where the word sheriff comes from?
No.
Shire reef. So they had these shires, and you had the reef was sort of the police, and that became sheriff. So
I like
that. Because I have to round it up, I have a show after this one. But how you've been doing this for a while? Do you see it catching on? Do you see other local communities following your example? Because you also have this End Bitcoin talk where you sort of talk to other Bitcoins. Like, is it spreading? Is it catching on? Is it growing?
Yeah, slowly. I mean, I can't say I orange pill half of the farmers I talk to, but I've interacted with farmers that have become friends. They have come to our Bitcoin meetups. We host what we call a homesteader breakfast twice a month. So our local Bitcoin meetup is presented to the community like a homesteader breakfast, potluck style, twice a month. Come out to the farm. We've got a cafe. I'm sitting in it, and we have a lot of people out here, and they come and learn about our circular economy, what we're doing locally. We're opening up like a little member only RFID access store. We're doing a lot of these projects, and then they usually ask, okay, like, what about this Bitcoin thing? One friend recently told me, he goes, and this is a farmer who's third generation farmer, is self-custodying Bitcoin, didn't know anything about it. So he's self-custodying Bitcoin. He's got a stack for his family, understands DCA. And he's still not completely, doesn't totally get it. But he told me, I've never met a Bitcoiner I don't like. And I told him, well, I'll find you one. I'm sure I could find you a couple. But yeah, that's kind of the thing. Like, where else are you going to find a community of all types of people who are willing to come out to your farm and muck shit, hoping that you'll be here next year? Like, where else do you know of a community that's saying like, hey, we're all going to have to be entrepreneurs. Do you know how to start a business? Let's start businesses together. So we meet monthly to help get local businesses going, help young guys come up with a vision, come up with a 10-year plan, break that into 3-year goals. So like all of these things are just like, hey, we will always have the resources that we've always had right here. We can be bamboozled into thinking that Washington, D.C. or Brussels has any influence on our life whatsoever. Really, it's just the money printer. If we are ignoring the money printer, then let's go be productive, you know? Yeah. And I just kind of assume I assume Bitcoin wins. I think it already has. Yeah. In my life, it has. You know, just stop.
And okay, the final question is like, because you mentioned Finland, I'm from Europe, so I'm kind of curious, what is the situation in Finland? And
yeah,
can you speak
exactly
a little bit
the same
on that?
here. Yeah, exactly the same here. You know, that like the financialization of land and you know, deep regulation has made it so that farms never get bigger and bigger. They always get smaller and smaller and smaller. You have to be willing to die doing this to be a farmer or to be an entrepreneur or to do a lot of these things. You know, like if I started a shoe company in my local town and I wanted to outcompete Nike, like at some point, we're not competing over like making shoes. At some point, we're playing some very sophisticated financial games, you know, and that's not productive. That's not what we're talking about. That's not what we're doing. That's not what Bitcoin is going to go do. You guys do that all the while the Titanic goes down. Have a good time.
So it doesn't work anymore. Yeah.
No, it doesn't. It don't. But we're going to make good shoes, you know? And yeah, that's kind of my thesis. Just ignore clown world. It's not easy. Figure out how to pay your bills, and it's going to get a lot better for you and your community. Your community is going to grow. I don't know you guys very well, but I mean, that's how we were connected. We were connected through this community, you know? And I can't imagine needing something and it not being met. Like, I just have so many brothers all over the world working to end the Fed. Praise God. Let's go, you know?
Yes.
Yeah. That's an international community, which is getting wealthier by the day, of course, right? Yeah. Because Bitcoin is going up. So, and there's a lot of know-how.
No, it's not because Bitcoin's going up. It's because they're more productive. It's because their battleships, battleships are moving. We have like full propeller technology, and we will continue to advance our world over clown world all the time. And I think Bitcoin price action is a reflection of that. But
and technically Bitcoin is not going up, the dollar is going down. So, you know,
I love that comparison. Yes.
So, and on that note, let's wrap it up. Thank you very much for being on the show, Ryan Cooper. Keep doing what you're doing, and we'll keep promoting what you're doing. And I think Steve already invited you to be on the Good Morning Show, which is from Monday till Friday. You know, so feel free to become a regular there. And let's do this again in the future.
Thank you so much, guys. Great getting to know you, Nick and Fry. Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much. Likewise.
Pleasure was all ours. Take care.